have our invocation by Supervisor Lori Smith, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Dan Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. It is a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon. If you'll bow your heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today most humbled and grateful for all of the blessings in our lives and in the lives of our citizens here in the county. Lord, we pray for our country. We pray for our all of the wars going on, and that peace and grace would be given to all concerned. Lord, we pray as we move forward with our work today that you will bless this board with insight, with knowledge, and the ability to work collectively on behalf of our citizens. And Lord, we ask that you be with us and that you walk with us through the continued days this week. In God's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Board members, are there any further modifications or changes that need to be made to the agenda? If not, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I will.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Madam Clerk, we need a roll call. Can we take a voice vote on that?
Voice votes.
Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda as presented, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And none opposed. All right. This time, we would like to recognize Mr. Carter and our Finance Department. This is recognition of the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. At our previous meeting, we recognized a number of awards received by various Franklin County departments. Mr. Carter, if you will, please approach the podium. And we're pleased to announce that our Finance Department has been recognized once again for their hard work and dedication. The Distinguished Budget Presentation Award is a national recognition awarded by the Government Finance Officers Association. The GFOA established the Budget Award Program in 1984 to encourage and assist state and local governments to prepare budget documents at the highest quality that reflect guidelines established by the National Advisory Council on State and Local Budgeting and the GFOA's best practices in budgeting. To earn recognition, budget documents must meet program criteria and excel as a policy document, financial plan, operations guide, and communication tool. This is the 22nd year that Franklin County has received this award. I just want to take this time, Brian, to thank you and your team for all your hard work and dedication to Franklin County. And we appreciate you and we thank you. And we'd like to celebrate that.
Speech.
Brian, again. Whatever you do, don't drop it. That thing's gonna hurt you. All right, there you go. Right. We certainly know that the work that they do is not easy, and a lot of times when you have your bean counters, everybody wants to complain, they get me on this, they won't let me spend this, they won't let me do this, but where will we be without them? And we certainly are fortunate with Brian and your department, and just thank you again. All right, this time we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Board, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to pull number 4.
Number 4? Okay, anyone else?
I'd like to pull number 3, Mr. Chairman.
Number 3, okay. Anyone else? Okay, so on items 1, 2, 5, and 6, do I have a motion to approve?
I will.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call, please?
Supervisor Mitchell,
Yes.
Supervisor Carter,
Yes.
Supervisor Smith,
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn,
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison. Supervisor Jamison, can you hear us?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum,
Yes.
and Chairman Thompson's absent for the vote.
Okay. Mr. Carter, since you pulled number 3, we will come back to you for number 3 if you want to discuss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Since this concerns the carryover money or the rollover surplus, I think I would like to carry that over till we get to Mr. Carter's presentation at 3:20 and discuss that in terms with the surplus and the rollover.
Okay. Ms. Smith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Excuse me. I pulled this executive summary on the ratification of the emergency procurement for public safety and the pharmacy equipment, the new standards for which the localities are being placed in. I believe the deadline is in at the end of November, Mr. Sandy, for compliance with this. I think it's, I really wanted to use this as an opportunity to talk briefly to our citizens about the fact that the way we do business with our ambulance services with specificity to the medication provision that's on the ambulances is changing, and it's changing under regulation, meaning that the localities now have to have their own pharmacy and have to have everything set up and paid for, whereas prior to, we worked through the local hospital at Carilion as an example, and our meds were dispersed from Carilion and at their cost. And so now with the new provisions, we have to establish our own pharmacy with medications, monitoring, and this has to be an ongoing practice in our EMS and public safety environments. This is going to put increased costs. Right now, we're looking at a $200,000 base cost startup with pharmacy purchases, and which we're being asked to take out a carryover. This is going to be new pressures on our public safety budget moving forward. And it's going to place, I'm really very worried about the pressures and the challenges it's going to present to our public safety providers, our first responders, and what this is going to look like and the challenges that they may incur. So I just really wanted to bring this out, Mr. Vice Chair, as a matter of information. And I really wanted to send a strong message to public safety in that we may, I know moving through time, there may be opportunities or challenges where we have to address and tweak things. I just want you to know that this board stands firmly behind you. We think this is not a great thing being placed on the localities. I don't like it personally, but it is what it is. We have no control. This is a federal mandate. So I just wanted to educate and inform and vow to our public safety staff that we will stand behind you and give the support that's required to help this be as seamless as possible.
Anyone else have any comments on item 4? Okay, what's your pleasure on item 4?
I would, if we're going to, it's fine to adopt within the
Okay, so you
consent
want
agenda.
you want to make a motion that we would.
I
item
will,
4?
so you just want to do number 4?
Yes.
Yes. So I would make a motion, Mr. Vice Chair, that we approve number 4 of the consent agenda as stated.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call, please, on item 4?
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison?
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes.
And Chairman Thompson's absent for the vote.
And so, Mr. Carter, if you will, please remind us when we get to the other.
Yes, I will. I don't have a problem with doing that. I just want to understand how that's going to be paid for in this three-phase spending of the surplus money. I want some more clarification
Okay.
before we vote on that.
All right, don't let it slip past us.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving right along. Let's see, Brian Costello. Nice to see you again.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here. We're here for the VDOT Road Report. So just one thing to note, for Route 728 Leaning Oak Road, that low water structure has been completed and we've also paved over it.
Brian, I have a question about that. Is this the little concrete bridge over a very small stream right there near where Mountain Valley put in a valve?
I can't speak to it. I actually didn't travel to this one, so I believe so.
Because if it was, that was damaged when Mountain Valley Pipeline started construction. It sloped in the middle. If it's the same thing, and I'm not sure, it's not my district, but if there was money involved in that, Mountain Valley Pipeline should be made to pony up some money towards that repair.
I'll certainly check on that. I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, it's a little single, it's like just a culvert with concrete over the top of it. They caved it in basically, so instead of being like, it was like that.
Okay. Sometimes we construct them that way as well so that they'll drain,
Right.
so the water will rise up and then flow over top of it rather than so. But I'll certainly get checking on that one.
Okay, thank you.
All right, maintenance activities for the next 60 days. We've got, of course, our ordinary maintenance is ongoing, but Route 601 Dudley Amos Road, we've recently completed some chip seal and some patching on that one. We did get a few complaints regarding the rideability of it, but we've since been out, and it was a multi-step project to put down some asphalt plant mix and then come back and surface treat over top of it, made the rideability better. And we will have that on the schedule for next year to be surface treated completely.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, ma'am. Route 807, let's see, Mary Beth Hollow. We're going to hopefully get to the final surface on that this week, but the weather's not cooperating. That's our plan. We have a pipe replacement on Route 40 near Waitsboro Road. We're working on that. And then we've got a lot of activity on Callaway Road. We have 2 pipe replacement projects that we're going to do that's going to cause us to need to close the roadway. It's about 3 or 4 miles sort of north of the post office. It's on the other side. And then we just recently found out that we have a bridge project that has gone from a 26-ton rating to a 13-ton rating, and they're going to have to close the road in the vicinity between 737 and Algoma. So we're going to have some signed detours. It's going to be pretty significant. One of the detours will take Algoma from 641 all the way up to Gap Gate and then back to Callaway. The other one we'll have for the pipe part will be Bethany up to Algoma and then same course to Gap Gate. So there's going to be a lot of activity in the next 2 months on Callaway Road. Unfortunately, they need to be done simultaneously because of the condition of both the bridge and at least one of the pipes. It's failing. So just bring your attention to that. And let's see, all the 220 paving has been ongoing. That's still in progress. On page 2, we just completed under construction Route 1136 Goldfinch Circle. That was a rural addition that's been a long time coming, so we did that with state forces, all in-house. So that's now complete. Under traffic studies, we have 2. We have Route 613 Nav Road, which Mr. Jamison brought up last month. It's been some time since we've looked at Nav Road, so we are putting that into review. So our Salem District Traffic Engineering has that to study, and we'll have a report in a month or 2 when they're complete. We've got Route 1291, and this is a correction on your report here. It's actually Winding Waters, and that's over Montego Bay area. So that's for a reduction in speed limit as well. And then last page, the first 3 bullet items, those projects are bundled. They have been re-advertised. Bids are due back the end of this month. We're hopeful to get some prices back that we can award those projects. We really need to get those moving. And then the other projects, let's see, we've got the Chestnut Hill 705. That's coming up for December advertisement, and that's going to be closed as well. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns.
All right, anyone have any questions for Brian? Must be a good month.
Wow, got off easy.
You got let off easy.
Yeah. Well, thank y'all.
Thank you, Brian. All right, moving right along, Brian Carter.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. So the first item is our finance report for the month. So we are through, this report's through August, so it's 2 months out of the fiscal year. That's going to be about 16.7% would be where we would expect our monthly items to be. Looking at revenue, I wonder if I can move that. I want to hang up. All right, let me go back. Or not, it doesn't like that. Previous, there we go. So looking at the percentages down the side, you can see for a monthly, we're at or exceeding that 16%, so that's a good sign. Some of those are cyclical, some of those probably a little bit more front-loaded the year, but revenues are looking strong. For expenditures, we're right at or below or within a reasonable variance of that 16.7%. Nothing that's sticking out that would be a concern at this point, trending above anticipated budget. So to graph the revenues, you can see pretty in line with where we would expect to be. Break that down a little bit more for you. Our property taxes and our other local taxes are pretty consistent compared to this point in time last year. You see an increase in state revenue. That looks to be mostly a timing, and it's really driven a lot by social services and CSA. But it's nothing out of the ordinary. It just seems to be the timing of when the reimbursement came in compared to last year to this year. So of our recurring monthly taxes, so our local sales tax, for August collections, we moderated a bit. So if you notice, let me get this going. So for July, we had a very nice increase. It's moderated, but still up in August. So year over year, it's just under $65,000 in growth. That's about 4.7%. That's still good. We're at 18.5% of the budget, so we're good full 2 percentage points pretty much above where we would want to be at the very least on that sales tax revenue. So, and that's 2 months behind because it has to flow through the state. So that's going to be actually June collections for us that we received in August. Okay. So for meals tax, we're trending right now a little below where we were at this point in time last year. Not a lot, just under $10,000. That's about a 2.8%. It is better than it was last month. We were about 3.2% behind. Now we're 2.8%, so we're trending a little closer to matching last year's collections. But we are at still 23% of budget. So we're, rather than 16%, we're at 23%. As we know, though, and you'll see the same thing on occupancy, you can kind of see it is, our meals tax collection is higher in the warmer months. And so it's going to bottom out. So it's not necessarily the same percentage we would look at as something that's collected evenly across every month of the fiscal year. So we'll monitor that, but the good news is the main thing that we look at, it may trend down, but as long as we projected budget to trend down with it, then we're okay. And we're okay as far as our percent of budget goes to fund county services. Occupancy is about the same way. It's basically even with where it was last year. We were a little low in July. You can see the line here is trended up for August. And so it's still at $760 below where we were at this point in time last year, about a 0.6% reduction, but we're at 31% of budget. And so we missed the budget last year. We wanted to make sure we took a conservative approach this year. We're well within our budgeted range that we would expect. This has a similar trend, though, into where you're going to peak in the summer months and it's going to decline over your colder winter months. So that percentage will change as we get into the fiscal year. But as of right now, we're still okay with where we would anticipate to be year over year. So for our expenditures, we had a drop in August. A lot of that tends to be cyclical. We were up in July, so that's gonna trend. To break that down by category, the ones that are really of any significance are your public safety function, not department, but the function includes sheriff's office, public safety, animal control, and our health and welfare. And so we anticipate that. There's no real big driver on a lot of those increases other than we budgeted for some increased costs. And if you remember, there were some new positions added in some of those areas. And so that's going to trend higher than it was last year at this point in time. So they're within budgeted ranges on the expenditure side is the main point. So for the health and welfare, a little bit more detail you can see. So our social services budget is up, necessarily to be unanticipated. They're within anticipated ranges, and the same with CSA at this point. That's going to continue to be an expenditure pressure, just by the nature of the rate increases that we receive from our vendors. And so we're likely to see that continue from an increased trend for the remainder of the fiscal year when we look at it over prior year. So on fund balance, we did update some numbers. Now, these are unaudited, so please caveat that. This is where fund balance looks today as we continue to make adjusting entries, as we continue to review and we prepare for our audit that's coming the first week or so of October. So we have about $47.7 million in unassigned fund balance, and that's typically what we look at when we have our policy and we talk about that. We just had an update with Davenport, so when they talk about fund balance, it is the unassigned fund balance that they're referencing. The reason for that is, hence the name unassigned, it has the flexibility for us to use it as we need to for reserves and operations. So for the sake of backing down a few things, anticipating some CIP reserves or action, if the board so decides. If the board does not vote on these items, that changes these numbers, but I'd like to give you conservative estimates of where we would anticipate being. So looking, depending on what happens with our rollover request today and anticipating backing out where the school year end surplus is today, which is significantly down from prior years. They've pretty much spent through a lot of that federal stimulus money since the ESSER money. And so they're getting back into probably a normal trend line of what we would expect on year-end surplus for the school system. Our policy minimum estimated based on current revenues is about $24.2 million. So right now we're about $20.5 million over the policy minimum after you back out those items. And so what we will anticipate is, depending on how we look at year-end surplus, we have that presentation next, and what we plan to spend on those, that may go down further if we dedicate some revenue out of that. So, okay, some reserves. The budget stabilization and the capital reserve are still unchanged from where we were in prior month. So economic update, CPI did increase 2.5% in August, year over year. Core inflation increased 3.2%, and the reason that's important is core inflation excludes food and energy, which are considered more volatile. What core inflation does include, though, is housing. And so what is driving a lot of the core inflation increase right now is housing, mortgages, rents just continues to increase and become more and more unaffordable for families trying to find, which also is contributing to, of course, the housing shortage and all of those items as well. Supply and demand, very classic example of it. The unemployment rate was 4.2% in August. It trickled down a little bit. It was 4.3% in July. One thing to keep in mind, though, they revise those numbers. I don't know But there was a significant job reduction revision a month or so ago from the Bureau of Labor Statistics to the tune of several 100,000 jobs that were over projected to be added to the economy. So those two items, so it's the inflation and it's also the job market and the growth, are going to be what informs the Federal Reserve, which are meeting today and tomorrow. So the general consensus is there will be likely a rate cut at their meeting today, tomorrow. Most estimates are somewhere between 0.25% to 0.5%. I think that's more likely. I guess it depends. Job factors were okay the last month. Inflation, so knowing the conservative nature of the Fed, maybe 0.25%. What that does is twofold. Of course, that starts eventually trickling down to bringing interest rates down. So that does, on the sense of the county, reduce the cost of borrowing should we move forward with any of our capital needs. But it also decreases the interest rate that we're earning on our investments. And so we have to manage both of those scenarios. And with that, that's the financial report. Be happy to help answer any questions.
All right, anyone have any questions for Brian?
So Brian, just quickly, given that with sales tax as an example, we're dealing with June before the end of the fiscal year, do these numbers pick up encumbrances, or are they lagging back from before the fiscal year started?
These numbers are, and now encumbrances are more an expenditure side.
Right.
No, they don't pick up any kind of liability you're holding now.
Okay.
What I report to you is more on a cash basis. I just report it as it's collected, but you are correct. So that's June, so that goes back to prior fiscal year as far as what the auditors look at for how we end our year. So what I'm doing is when I give you an estimated projected fund balance number, I'm anticipating those August collections, which were really June, to help us end last fiscal year.
Right, gotcha.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
So,
Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
Anyone else have anything for Brian?
Is that it? Okay. Well, I can pivot on to the
Are you going to
next
circle
one.
back on Mike's comment on the consent agenda item? Okay.
Yeah, and we'll need, we'll just move on with that. We'll need a separate vote on that if we want to move forward on that sheriff's office one. Okay, so year-end surplus. So what we've done, we've estimated at this point, will be a real caveat that this is, of course, still, it's not final till the audit's done, okay? So what we've been doing, we continue to work on the 2024 closeout. Right now, the operating surplus is conservatively estimated to be $3 million. That's mostly due to what are typically the bigger drivers in our budget, especially on the local side, which is our property taxes, real and personal, as well as our sales taxes, and our interest earnings did exceed budget this year. Part of what we try and project is not only the interest rate, what it'll be for the fiscal year, but what the value of property will be. So we project the value of real estate when we're not in a reassessment year. We project the value of vehicles for personal property and whether they'll go down, whether they'll go up. And so in all of those projections, we are always conservative. And so again, those are mostly contributing to the increase. Expenditures were pretty much in line with where we anticipated budget. There were some departmental savings. So looking at that $3 million, at least as we have right now, so we're looking at a phased approach. We would, something we'd like to recommend to the board and for your consideration. Mainly one, it helps us address really the capital needs that have already been adopted or approved by the board or were reviewed and cut out when we had to balance the budget. And so that would be what we would consider phase one. We consider those, they've already been vetted. These are department requests that have been presented to this board. They were either adopted by the board in the CIP plan, or they were part of what we cut out when we dropped from 45 cents to 43 cents. So they're not new items that have not been presented at some point for you. That's really the phase one approach that we want to talk about a little bit more today. That's going to be the emphasis today. As we get through the audit and we have a better idea of where that final number is, I think we move into phase two and phase three, which would be supplementing either capital reserves, whether that would be for equipment, whether that would be for infrastructure, economic development, any of those things that the board may deem to be the highest priority. And the other thing would be phase 3, which is the department requests. That would be more operational in a sense, not really your big ticket capital items, maybe one-time items that are needed, but not necessarily critical from a standpoint of a pressing need or capital funding, okay? So phase 1 is a little over $2 million, and so what this is made up of, and I have a little more detail as we go, could certainly go into more line item, whatever the board's pleasure is. The first one is if you remember, in the adopted CIP, there was a column for carryover. This is that column. And so the $1,005,160 is really already in your adopted CIP. So the board has already, as a collective, approved funding these projects. We just haven't appropriated the money. So this item was the top on our list to say, this is what was adopted in our CIP. This is the request to appropriate money now that we know we have a year-end surplus for a carryover funding. If we weren't in that situation, then that would change, and we'd come back to you and say we need to amend the CIP, change these projects. Okay. The second item of the $653,000, and we have more detail on these, so I certainly want to provide that to you, is, if you remember, we cut several items out of the budget to balance from a 45-cent to a 43-cent tax rate. A lot of those were still needed capital items, and so now that we have some year-end surplus to fund those, we want to recommend funding those. So they were in the CIP. They were items, again, that you were able to vet and see, and so we'll certainly bring those back around to you, but I want to make sure that we understand they're not new items. They're items that were previously reviewed with you in the budget process as we were getting ready for this year. Now, the last two are the two items that actually were in the consent agenda. So we approved the public safety pharmacy. The funding for that is the $200,000, so we would need to appropriate that with an action here. The other is the sheriff in-car and body-worn camera system. And so that item actually was a request in the CIP. We did not fully fund that. We didn't fully fund it for one reason of that the timing was a little different than anticipated as far as when the old lease was ending and the new lease was starting. So basically, that item, if you remember from the executive summary, the current camera system is 5+ years old. So any technology that you have, whether it's a tablet or a PC or a camera, after 5 years, it's starting to become obsolete and failing. And so basically the request for that and the priority need of it is they're beyond that 5+ year life. Since they asked for it in the CIP, we weren't able to fund it. We recommended we go ahead and fund that for the sheriff's office and replacement of their system, their cameras, their software. And so that would be phase 1. If there are questions here, I'll pause, or if the board's okay with me moving into a little more detail, I'll be happy to do that in the following slides.
Anyone have any questions?
Just a clarification, if I may. Brian, the 173 and the 200
Yes, ma'am.
represent what's going to be recurring expenditures, correct?
This is the one-time upfront, but
Right.
you are correct. So what you would commit to, there will be a recurring component. Either in the case of the sheriff's, it would be a recurring lease payment for the next 4 years because it is a 5-year lease. For the pharmacy system, you'll have the equipment. This buys the equipment, but there is going to be a recurring operating cost to continue purchasing the medication and to fund that from a pharmacy system standpoint.
Have we projected a number for that, operating number?
I do not have an operating number on that. It's going to be kind of difficult.
It's new, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it, okay.
I think it's kind of one of those, it's not very favorable because we don't like to operate this way, but we're kind of being forced into it on some of these items just by end of life, or in this case, by federal agencies, so. But there will be, you're correct on those last two items, Ms. Smith, there will be a recurring operating cost that we would be obligating ourselves to for future years. I don't know how we get out of it unless we want to say we don't want to do certain things, especially the pharmacy system is kind of a requirement. The in-car camera, I think, is a policy in the body worn, but I can certainly stand here and tell you, and I'm sure Sheriff's Office would be happy to do the same, while how important that is for the deputies in the field and in the school system.
I just have one more question, if I may. Brian, I know you say you have detail on Phase 2 and Phase 3. Are the capital items for Scruggs included in that, in our, because I know that there's been some discussion between the Public Safety Director and Scruggs about 3 items that come up to about $177,000. Are these programmed anywhere in your phases?
They would be part of our department requests in Phase 3 at this time. It would not be for consideration today in Phase 1. I don't know, the board can certainly do, but there were requests from Scruggs. They were submitted by the Public Safety Department, so that would be considered for Phase 3 when we come back in October and November.
And those Phase 3 things will compete with one another across the organization?
That's correct. Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Brian, this phase, this is new, correct? We've not done this like this before.
I don't think we've really termed it phases. We did do the similar last year. We kind of had 2 or 3 different votes on carryover items, but it was for different needs. I guess I would say we did have a CIP piece last year. We did put some money in reserves, and we had department requests. But the phasing of it is a little bit different terminology. The methodology has been used to some extent in prior
I guess
years.
my concern is
Yeah.
individual department carryovers. So if we start piecemealing this money out now, when we get to Phase 3, which will, quote, consider other department requests, I'm concerned what money's going to be left in there to dole out to these other departments.
Well, so let me be clear. The CIP items are funding department requests. So I want to be clear that we're not funding departments. We're funding department requests with all of these items. Now, when we get to Phase 2 and 3, when we talk about reserves and other department requests, that's where, to your point, Mr. Carter, but, to me, I look at it as if the board's already approved something or departments have already asked for it and we were able to fund it, then that should be the top priority before we fund something new. So the methodology on the funding and the phasing is just that. What we have today is what's already been asked for. So if departments need to change that, that's one thing, but I feel like that's why we want to put this Phase 1, because this should be higher priority than something new that wasn't put in the budget last fiscal year. If you're okay, I would like to go through some of those detail items so you can kind of see what.
But let me ask you one question before you. So
Yes, sir.
ultimately, though, this money is coming out of budget surpluses from the departments, correct?
I would not say so much from departments, some of it. The rest of it is from our revenue and property taxes exceeding. So it's not really departmental savings as much as it is conservative budgeting and revenue coming over.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a
All right.
combination there.
Mr. Carter?
Hold on, Mr. Mitchell, you had a question.
Brian, you kind of hinted to what I was going to ask. Can you go back to your first slide?
Sorry, this one?
Yeah, surplus is mostly due to real estate and personal property taxes. Do you have and I'm not looking for an exact number, a percentage of what you think comes from, and I give you the credit for this, that this money is coming from conservative budgeting and growth, and do you have a percentage of what part of that comes from budgeting and what percentage of it comes from returns from county departments?
I don't have that percentage in front of me. So the overall, if we look at an overall $3 million, let me give you an example. So if in our overall surplus of $3 million, easily $2.5 million is real estate, personal property, and sales. So at best, before I count interest earnings, it's $500,000. But really, it's closer. By the time I count all of it, if you want to count departmental savings, it's less than 10% of our surplus is probably departmental savings.
I say that I don't feel like we're getting, when we set a budget and we set a tax rate, we're setting a number that it's this board's job to decide how much money the county has to run. And then when we come, I don't like complaining about this because I don't have an answer, but then when we come back to this, I feel like we're just kicking a can. And we're constantly talking about things, how to dedicated revenue streams for capital projects. And here it is. It's one of the many. And I feel like that we should be going about this a different way. That we're just going back and fixing things that when we set a tax rate, we were okay with it. And now it's just coming back in a sweep, checking them off a list. And if anything, we should probably be having a work session about these things, figuring out where it should go. But Brian, kudos to you, because like I said, this isn't returns from county departments. This is conservative budgeting.
Yeah, it's a combination. I mean, our departments do a great job managing their budgets, but a great chunk of this is just we collected more money than we anticipated. There are several reasons for that. Won't bore with all of that, but conservative budgeting is the short and simple answer of, especially in an environment where you've seen wild fluctuations of property values and interest rates, and so just trying to make sure we land the plane. I'd much rather stand up here and tell you we have a very decent surplus than stand up here and tell you we're short and we need to borrow from fund balance to finish the year.
And I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from when I say I feel like we're setting this and saying this is the money we have, and it's everyone's job to prioritize their budget. And then we just come in here and we're doing a clean sweep. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying that all these items don't need to be funded, but I think we should be going about it a different way.
And Nick, what I might add, and I don't know if this helps, a lot of what you're seeing in these phases are on the capital side, except with those two reappropriations for today. And so we know as a board that we have not funded capital anywhere close to what we should have been doing on an annual basis. So I think when things come back from carryover, and Mr. Carter, to your point, I was thinking that maybe what you were maybe getting at was the carryover left over by department and how we have historically given that money back to the departments. Is that where you were headed with that?
Yes, exactly.
And so Nick, for you, I'm thinking that maybe it's some distinction between capital and operating, and how maybe for the first time since I've been on this board, there looks like an effort to bolster the capital line items and get them to a good level to start with. I don't know. Mr. Whitlow could address that more specifically, but that's my guess.
Anyone else have any comments or questions about this? Moving right along.
Okay. So, as far as so the next couple of slides really dig into a little bit more of those first couple of items, because you have the executive summaries on the sheriff in-car camera and the public safety system in your agenda packet. So, and technically we already approved the pharmacy system, so I do need $200,000 so public safety can move forward with that today. On the in-car camera, we can, I know there was a question, so if we want to discuss that, but that is a time-sensitive need as well. Certainly answer any questions, but I want to focus on the first two items, and the reason I want to focus on those, if you remember, so this is the list of the adopted CIP, and I only have one monitor, but if we look at that, and I can certainly pull that up off our website and show the board this column, but if you look in your adopted budget book in the CIP, you have these projects in that document that you adopted and you approved for this year's budget. So these are all of the projects that would be funded with this one-time money. And so for us, it's a matter of we adopted the budget anticipating, knowing we're not going to have enough money to fund capital with our existing tax rate. But these are still needs, these are priorities. So when we recommended a capital budget to the board, we said, well, we can fund this much in our local recurring revenue that our tax rate will support. However, we know that we have additional capital needs. If we have a year-end surplus, we will adopt to fund this with carryover. And so this is what was in that column. If we'd like to go through the budget book a little more, that probably spells it out a little bit differently. I can pull that up and pull it on the screen here, but try to put it on a PowerPoint slide just to consolidate it for you. But if you pull your budget book, these are the exact line items that the board already approved. And so some of these, for example, the animal control vehicle at the bottom, the board's already approved, and that money's already spent. We just need to appropriate it because that was prior board action and animal control needed a vehicle. We needed to move forward. Other of these items haven't been spent. Well, the update for the comprehensive plan and zoning up top, the contract's been signed. And so the intent on that was we couldn't fund all of it, but we need the carryover money in order to fund that contract. The rest of these were part of a regular replacement schedule or maintenance and things of those nature that we put in there for funding. And we can certainly go down the list. I'll be happy to if the board wants to take the time to go delve into any of these particular items. I can pull up detail from the CIP. I can give you a little more information on the capital project. I think from staff's perspective, when the board adopts a CIP, that's our instruction and direction to move forward with funding these things. And so if we don't want to do that, that's fine. That's board's discretion. But that's kind of staff's direction of we as the board determined that these needed to be funded when we approve this budget. And so that really is this list right here that's in front of you that we're asking for today. Before we leave this page, are there any questions? Would you like to go down or just ask specific projects? Be happy to take the time that the board needs.
Roll right along.
Okay, all right. So the other 653,000. So we cut out about $1.5 million of the capital when it was dropped from 45 cents to 43 cents. This is restoring all of those items except the fire apparatus. And the reason we're not restoring the fire apparatus is I have a 1% budget cap in order to appropriate money by state code. And so these items, if you noticed, get us to $2 million. My cap is $2.2 million, and I also had supplemental appropriations that you approved today. So I'm kind of limited. It's not that the fire apparatus is more important or less important, but there are two factors there. One, we hadn't settled on what that truck was going to be because Boone's Mill was next up in the rotation. So I figured, well, we can punt that to an October or November meeting because I know there was some discussion going on between public safety, Boone's Mill, and that truck was still to be determined. And the other item was I needed something to cut out to fit into my 1% budget cap. So it's everything except that fire apparatus. I want to explain to you the reasoning why we put these in front of you. Not saying one's more important than the other. It just depends on timing. Some of these are more maintenance items. Do they have to be done today? No, they do not. HVAC upgrades, roof replacement, some parks and rec equipment. The animal control vehicle we do because, again, that money's already been spent. The board obligated that. We were just, if you remember, we were going to bring that back to you when we talked about carryover, but the money has been approved already. And then we previously talked about, it was in the budget, we had to cut it out, but the need for school bus replacement, we'd like to restore that. That's probably at least 3 or 4 buses for a school system to purchase until we can get, and that's a little bit of an improvement until we can get a better funding strategy, whether that's through the upcoming budget as we work with Davenport on some recurring items. Certainly going to be a need we're going to have to address. But that's just restoring a one-time to try and give them. That's in addition to the $340,000 that we do budget on a recurring basis every year. And so those are really the two capital items. But all of these were on the CIP. They were just cut out in order to balance. So I don't want the board to think that we haven't vetted these. These were created. These were vetted in the budget process. We just added them back in. So with that, I'd like to pause here before we move on, unless there are any questions. We could pull up the CIP. We could provide more detail.
I have a quick question,
Go
if I
ahead.
may. Brian, again, on the Scruggs Capital for
Yes, ma'am.
$177K.
Yes.
I know that's been a very fluid discussion over months, last 6 months or so. And I'm curious as to when you would have declared that to be capital budget ready.
Yeah.
I know that there was some verbiage regarding bids and so forth. But, there's a roof ceiling issue at the, over there, and that's also a precinct, voting precinct, and a stretcher and a cardiac monitor. So I really need to get an understanding if these are now funding priorities for us to look at. I certainly would like to request that. I just don't know if it interrupts Or is out of sequence in terms of the actions that this board has taken thus far, knowing that this has been a simultaneous discussion?
A couple of things in my mind. I can only speak for myself. I'm looking at it from a global perspective. Historically, the county has not funded capital for non-county owned facilities. That has not been a priority of the board. And so we make contributions, but we have not added them to our CIP. There's a distinction. And so we can't fund our own capital. So before myself is going to load up capital of non-county owned buildings, I would certainly want a little bit more board direction on that to do, because, you know, once you throw volunteer organizations in, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do it.
I understand.
Yeah, but please understand, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. It's just another capital component we historically have not done.
Okay.
And so I think that comes with other implications, and I think we've addressed some of those in previous discussions, which is, okay, well, if the county invests taxpayer money in this building, who owns it? And what happens if that volunteer agency decides to sell or fall, can't think of the words, but basically ceases to operate? And so who owns that? The county has invested taxpayer money. Does the county get that, or does the volunteer group get to sell it to whoever they want to? And what do we do with that lost investment? So if we're going to invest in non-county owned properties, it probably would be a good idea to have some kind of MOU or understanding of how we recoup, or have an agreement that that investment maintains for 10, 20, 30 years, depends, I guess, what it is. Anytime you're talking about roofs or HVAC or those items, I think those are probably important policy questions that we've talked about, but I don't think collectively we as the county or the board have decided on how we want to handle that. And so me, from just a pure policy perspective, I think that's why, one, they weren't ready for the CIP this past year, and two, why we haven't specifically put any volunteer requests on the CIP at this point. That's why we left it in those department requests. And we did receive that from the Public Safety Department for Scruggs in the department request. I do want to confirm that. It was delivered.
So just to confirm, we don't have any capital requests for the volunteer stations in the CIP?
We did not fund any of them. They were delivered to us, and we actually did include them in the CIP. I think that policy hang-up has been the reason why. And previously, we've had a couple of things. We have the grant program. We had the volunteer, mainly the fire association, but they ranked them. The problem with what came to us in the budget process from the volunteers is nobody ranked them. So I'm uncomfortable, maybe public safety, but if you remember, we were also in a transition period in the public safety department. So who is to say which volunteer is more important than another unless they rank it themselves and decide what we should fund first, because we're certainly not going to be able to fund all of them. And so I think a lot of those policy decisions have just kind of led us to, we need to settle those before we can really dedicate funding for capital, because as you've seen on the other list, we can't even fund the rest of our county capital. And so that may be something in some future work sessions. I mean, if the board wants to address, but I think from a staff perspective, it probably would be very, very helpful for me in particular, I won't speak for anybody else, if we could get either feedback or iron out some of those things before we really head down a path. Because I'd really like to see an overall number of the capital need from volunteers in the entire county, and what that obligation may be if we agree to start picking this up, because then that gets back to, okay, how do we fund it? And that's what we as staff bring back to you of recommendations on tax rates or obligations.
So I'm seeing two policy issues, and I would ask Mr. Sandy, if you deem with Chief Fowler that these are policy issues that need to be dealt with for next year's budget, I would ask that decision to be made in terms of prioritization of capital for the volunteer agencies, as well as, I get the non-county building piece, I get that. But if there's a decision to be made, that to me is a separate decision.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions?
Was there any?
Continue on.
Okay. And so really it's a matter of next steps for the board. It certainly you want your feedback on the proposed uses. Again, we're talking about just phase one today. It's a little over $2 million. We will bring back phase two and three. They can be combined. I'm not saying we would do phase two only and then phase three separately at the October, November meetings. But certainly if the board is ready to move forward with any of it, if we want to pull some of it out, that's perfectly fine. Then we certainly would like a vote today. And as a separate item, since we pulled that executive summary, we do need to vote to, if we want to move forward with that, we need to funding, but we need a separate vote for the actual lease purchase agreement.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Okay, yes, sir.
Mr. Carter, are you satisfied with the explanation?
Yes, I am, and I'd like to move forward with a motion concerning the sheriff's office.
Okay,
I make a motion that we approve the 5-year lease purchase agreement with Motorola Solutions for the sheriff's office's in-car and body-worn camera program and authorize the sheriff, county administrator, county attorney, or designees to execute the necessary contract documents.
all right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on this item. Any further discussion before we take a final vote?
I'll just have one comment concerning all this phase one, phase two. When we come back to this, I would like to see a list of the department carryovers and what we're going to have to work with in the future before we start doling all this money out.
Yes, sir. We'll have that for you.
All right, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call, please?
Supervisor Smith,
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn,
Yes.
Supervisor Carter,
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison,
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum,
Yes,
Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
okay,
Okay.
now moving right along.
So on the matter of the carryover or our year-end surplus uses, here are some possible motions. If we want more questions, you'd like me to go back to previous slides, you'd like some things pulled out and tabled, delayed, happy at the board's pleasure to do any of that. I would recommend that we at the very least do the two items that we approve, which is the sheriff in-car cameras and the public safety pharmacy.
Board, what's your pleasure?
I'll do it.
Okay, Nick, go ahead.
I make a motion to appropriate FY 2024 year-end surplus in the amount of $2,031,379 as outlined in this summary.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this before we take a final vote? Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call, please?
Supervisor Quinn,
Yes.
Supervisor Smith,
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison,
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell,
Yes.
Supervisor Carter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum,
Yes.
and Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
Thank you for your patience.
All right, anything else?
That's it.
If I may.
Thanks, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you. Good discussion regarding the capital, and to Mr. Supervisor Nick Mitchell's point regarding, a reoccurring revenue source for capital as part of our budget process. And I know this board will remember, probably painfully so, the last few years that we've demonstrated the need for recurring, funding for capital and not necessarily relying on this exercise every year to balance our capital budget. And I can't really reemphasize that enough. The costs and the expenses continue to increase. So in a prediction for FY 26, 27, you'll likely, when I present the budget again, you'll probably hear me say, the need for more capital funding and how we do that. But I know the devil's a lot in the details in terms of balancing operations and capital. And so I just, Mr. Mitchell just wanted to reiterate to that, and his point's well made in terms of a work session. And then furthermore, in terms of the discussion regarding public policy, Ms. Smith, Supervisor Smith, I think it's very important. We've talked a little bit about that big picture broadly from, some of our planning retreat work in terms of public safety facilities, because, some are we have very limited career facilities, but we're operating out of a lot of our volunteer facilities. And so what that may look like going forward, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the board, opportunities for us to solidify that more from a policy perspective. What would that look like 10, 15, 20 years? Because we are talking about taxpayers' dollars and investments that are serving the community, and thankfully so for our volunteers and careers. So we'll be strategizing and bringing some of these conversations back. But it was good dialogue. I was taking a lot of notes.
All right. This time, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and when we come back, Danny Poe will be presenting some of your business partners. Take these, Brian.
Will, I didn't know that. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Really? For goodness sakes.
All right, Ms. Poe. Floor is
Thank
yours.
you. Vice Chair, members of the board, thank you for having me here today. I am here to discuss Dogwood site at Summit View and give you a couple updates. So the first is regarding the pad expansion and the contract award for the pad expansion of Dogwood. Back in 2022, the county received approximately $2.5 million in grant funds between Virginia's Business Ready Sites Program and the Tobacco Region Revitalization Commission. Currently, we have about a balance of $400,000 with the Tobacco Commission that we have submitted for a change in scope, and that has been approved. So he is handing out an updated executive summary, but the change in scope is going to demo 4 existing buildings and structures, remove some trees. It's going to grade. We will have a new entrance for the buildings for Parks and Rec to access. We'll add to the pad about 3.5 acres, and then we will be extending the paved road access and adding a gate. So here is a map of the proposed work that you all have seen in a Friday memo. So none of this is new. We're just now coming to you because it has gone out for bid. We received the bids back on September 17th. And so at this time, I would ask the board to approve an award of construction contract with Kanawha Stone Company in the amount of $556,242.10 for the additional grading and construction work at the Dogwood site. And with that, you would authorize the county administrator and attorney to execute the documents needed for this work. But I'm happy to answer any questions about this that you might have.
One thing, Danny, that jumps out at me is the big discrepancy between these bids.
Yes. So what that relates to, the $400,000 is the balance that we have with tobacco. The initial award was $1.5 million, to which we have the matching funds available. So in totality, the project could go up to $800,000, but the Tobacco Commission that we had to apply for the change in scope covers the 4. So within our budget, all of those dollars are there in excess of what we're asking for today.
I think I may, Mr. Tatum, if I can, maybe to, and very similar question in terms of, I was pleased to see we got a really nice competitive low bid, and maybe to your question, maybe the large difference between the other bidders. One specific thing, the low bidder actually is Kanawha Stone, which is already mobilized and doing work on the connector road at the business park. And that's likely, I don't want to speak for Kanawha Stone. I know Mr. Galdwin works with them daily on the connector road project and others, but that's more than likely good reason why with their competitive bid.
Yes, they're already on site, so they don't need to remobilize.
Right.
All right, thank you. Moving right along.
Do we have a motion?
Need a motion on that one? All right, board, what's your pleasure?
I'll offer a motion when you're ready, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve a contract with Kanawha Stone Company Incorporated in the amount of $556,242.10 for additional grading and construction work at the Dogwood site at Summit View Business Park, and authorize the county administrator and county attorney to execute such documents as necessary to make this award.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take a final vote? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call, please?
Supervisor Jamison,
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell,
Yes.
Supervisor Carter,
Yes.
Supervisor Smith,
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Tatum,
Yes.
and Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
Thank you. So the second item I'm bringing you today is the Virginia Business Ready Sites Program. This grant was announced in the beginning of August. The county was awarded $5.5 million, and these dollars would be utilized to increase the wastewater capacity at Summit View to 400,000 gallons. And so today, we are asking for you all to accept the Virginia Business Ready Sites grant funding in the amount of the $5.5 million and authorize the county staff and county attorney to execute the appropriate documents. And with this, we would be partnering with Western Virginia Water Authority to complete the project.
All right. Anyone have any questions from Danny about this before we entertain a motion? Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. Vice Chair, I make a motion to accept the Virginia Business Ready Sites Program grant funding in the amount of $5.5 million and authorize county staff and county attorney to execute any documents necessary to accept the award on behalf of the county.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take a final vote? Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call?
Supervisor Mitchell,
Yes.
Supervisor Carter,
Yes.
Supervisor Smith,
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn,
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum,
Yes.
and Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dean.
All right. And moving right along, Rebecca Ventola, Director of Libraries. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for coming.
My slide is going to be a lot more lively. I put a lot of colors in mine. All right, how do we launch here? Okay. I'm here today. I've just celebrated my 1 year here with Franklin County. And when I got here, I told my staff to put your roller skates on. We're getting ready to make some changes and move forward. So I would like to talk to you today about some of the things that we have done and what we are looking to for the future for our library. Like I said, I wanted a more fun slide because library, it's the lighter side of the county, but it's also a necessity. We provide services that for people that can't get it anywhere else, and it's free. It's free. So here's a little bit. We have a fiscal year comparison from 23 to 24. Stats are up. Last year when I created the annual report for 22-23, I was not present for that year. And you can see the lovely circles I did there. Those were the numbers that have gone up. You will notice that the registered library users has gone down, but that is a kind of a fluke because we started a new ILS system 3 years prior, and when we did that, everybody was considered new library users. And after no use for 3 years, those documents get purged. So everybody got purged at the same time. So we had like 2,000 or 3,000 purged at once. But we did register over 1,600 new people. So that number will continue to go up. We just, from this point on, it will be, the purging will be at different times. So it won't show that. Everything else went way up. You can see the use of our digital downloads, look at the program attendance there. Well, you can see it on your screen. It's over 16,000 people attended programs as opposed to the 9,000 last year, and we offered less programs. We also had an increase in meeting rooms, circulation, and just visitors down, and we doubled the number of summer reading participants. We had just a little over 300 last year. We had 641 this year. Yes. And I put it in a nice little graph to be more formal there, but it's 20,000 increments there, and you can see some of them have doubled. Okay, so how did we do it? We have a staff of superstars. I wanted to put a picture of everybody up there, but the only one I had with everybody was with their Halloween costumes on, and they said, no. Don't. Okay, so anyway, we do have a staff of superstars. They were eager to learn new technology. They were eager to learn new procedures, offer new things. As you know, we have a very small staff for 2 branches and a bookmobile. We have under 20 staff, under 20 people. And so they have to wear many hats. They have to stretch their time. And when I'm adding more things for them to do, they take it very well. Very, very, very well. So I am so proud of everybody on my staff. It's the best staff I've ever had to manage. So we enhanced marketing. That was one way that we got the word out. We advertise in the county playbook now. I think we used to a long time ago. We're back in it. We added a digital library calendar. You can see the little picture there, that Spring Share, where patrons can see, interact with the programs, where they can go on and register from the convenience of their homes. They don't have to wait and call the library when we're open. We instated a marketing schedule. By that I mean all of the ways we disseminate the information. We have a schedule for the staff that are providing that information to get it to that designated marketing person at a certain time, so they all go out at the same time. What was happening before is the signs would go up, and then it would be on the internet a few days later, and then it would be in a newsletter a few days after that. And now it's all out at one time. So that provides equal opportunity for people who are accessing the programs from different places. We gained access back to the Google profile. When I got there, it hadn't been touched in several years, and questions had sadly gone unanswered, and so I was able to get access back to that. I had to walk around the library with the video camera proving that I worked there. But, anyway, we got access back to that, and we updated the library webpage. It's much easier to get to the catalog, and we continue advertising on social media platforms. And we have created more robust programs. We have STEM programs for children called MC Squared. We have more adult programs, and what I'm proud of the Westlake branch, they have stepped up. And we have so many adult programs than we used to have, and their numbers have gone up. And in fact, Westlake put us to shame in some of the summer programs for kids. They had higher numbers than we did. In our defense, our program was probably during that time and theirs wasn't, but that's okay. We offered a bigger kickoff event for summer. That's what I attribute the higher numbers. We almost had the number of signups in that first day that we had all year last summer. So kickoffs really do work. We had over 400 in attendance at that program. And we did a big end of the year bash as well, and we offered incentives. The teens got a Nintendo Switch as the grand prize. So one lucky teen in the county got a Nintendo Switch. So we kind of upped the ante on that. And you can see from the icons there that we have a lot of offerings. And Genealogy Club, we have created a partnership with them. And so we advertise their programs, and they have some very good guest speakers, and that's open to the public. So those are some of the things that we're doing program-wise. And then we've offered lots of cool things at the library. New and exciting benefits that you can get for free with your card. Newsbank Online, did you know that any library user with a card can access full issues of the Roanoke Times, even the newest one? And then we have Access World News, where you can search any world article from across the world, from across the United States, from Martinsville. And you can just look at it from home. You don't have to come into the library to pick up the newspaper. And if any of you are interested in using that, make sure your library card is updated. New privacy Zen pods. I invite anyone to come out and check those out. They are, you can see there, it's called a Zen booth. The two that we purchased seat 2 people. It's sound private. So our hopes are to offer telehealth services for the public, where we provide a iPad and the quiet place to do their telehealth visits, because it is HIPAA compliant, since it does have the soundproofing material inside. But right now, people are using them for quiet study. They're using them for meetings, business, and that sort of thing. And it's free, and they get it for 2 hours at a time. And we had 45 reservations in 1 month for the Zen pods. And that was the first month they were out. Now the word's out, and it's hard to get a reservation. We have new take-home kits where you can try something new. We just added a juggling kit, and I think last time I was here I talked about the ghost hunting and the pickleball. We introduced the AI robot, Luna, one of the first AI robots just a person can purchase. We purchased one for each branch, and she's like the branch mascot. And let's see, updated audio-visual equipment in the Rocky Mount meeting room, thanks to the rollover that we received last year. And Luna came from that rollover as well. And we updated our physical library collection with the latest nonfiction and fiction bestsellers. We did a big weeding, but we've added a lot of new, so it's so much easier to find the new. And moving on. So what's next? Well, we proudly completed our 5-year plan in the spring. And our vision statement that we included in that plan is right there for you. We strive to be the source for information, inspiration, community connections, lifelong learning through innovative, responsive programming and services, and a diverse, robust collection. Your library is a place to learn, grow, gather, and feel welcomed. So it's not just books. We offer a service that people count on. And I just have a snapshot of the strategic plan. I did a 1-page infographic with our 5 main points. I have submitted the full booklet plan to the board. And our 5 points are outreach and expansion of library services, employee engagement, facilitate lifelong learning, expand and highlight member services, and strengthen community connections. I'm not going to read everything there to you, but I did want to, this is just a brief snapshot of each priority in our plan. I just pulled out the biggest contenders here in that, but it's not the full list. But I did want you to see the strategic alignment with the county plan. So outreach and expansion that covers many of the county plan, well-planned growth, enhanced educational opportunities, conserving and promoting natural assets. We do want to explore providing services to outlying areas of the county. We are aware that there are areas of the county that aren't close to a brick and mortar library. We do have the bookmobile that goes around to those areas, but how can we do more? So we are looking to the future for maybe a mobile library, and I'm not talking about a bookmobile. I'm talking maybe something we can pull on a trailer or a large bookmobile where people can get on, set at a computer lab, use it, and if it doesn't do well in that location, we can just pick up and move it. Can't do that with a brick and mortar. Or a pocket library or a pop-up. And the location of those is still being worked out, but that's something in the distant future, but we've got our eye on it. Just want everyone to know that. We provide outreach services to educational institutions. I was out at Ferrum College, and I have rekindled our partnership, and it's going to include the bookmobile actually driving onto campus and providing books. Their library does not provide their students nonfiction books at the library, so this will be something they could use. And we also are exploring programs for homeschool families that we haven't been doing in the past. Something I'm excited about is bridging the physical, digital, and economic gap, and we can do that with digital literacy. And also having hotspots and things for people to check out so they can enjoy our digital collection from home if they don't have that. So part of that is the library's been included in the county pursuit of a broadband planning grant. I'm going to be in that group. And the library, myself, I have applied for a digital literacy grant through the Public Library Association, which will give, if I get it, will give $5,000 towards digital literacy and includes curriculum that we can offer classes at the library for various digital literacy needs. Priority 2, employee engagement. If you don't have happy employees, then the level of service is not there, and that aligns with responsible government operations. I'm not going to read all those to you, but I want my staff to grow, learn. We're going to have more biannual staff meetings, training sessions. We're going to streamline our onboarding process and retrain the entire staff with mandatory training. And let's see, and I was added, thank you, it was added to my budget to have more money in that budget line to provide opportunities for more staff to attend the various library conferences that are out there where we can keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the library world and bring it to Franklin County. Priority 3, facilitate lifelong learning. We're planning more book clubs in the library, story time in a box. Parent comes in, has a story time, and sees all the great things that we do, and then they can take home a kit and replicate it at home. Or if they can't come in, they can just check out the kit. And skill building and career education, I have made a plea to the state to get a digital app called Blue Collar, EBSCO Blue Collar, which will allow people to find out what kind of job skills they have, how they can obtain job skills in the blue collar industry, and how they can also apply for jobs, what's available in the area. And this app does all of that. And it's through a library database called EBSCO. So hopefully the state will get that and we can ride the coattails there for a free service. We're looking to incorporate the latest technology, tech classes for adults I mentioned, coding classes for kids and toddlers. We have purchased the latest of coding for kids. And AI technology, of course, Luna. Enhanced resources and programs that encourage social connection and leisure time. We're going to focus on our senior population, our vets, our and then, of course, just adult education, teens, youth services, and the whole gamut. Priority 4, expand and highlight member services that aligns with the strategic economic development and enhanced educational opportunities. we want to strengthen and update the library collection. We've done a little bit of that, but we're still working on it. Our state funding went up a little bit, about 20-something thousand, and I put that all into books and materials for the shelves. And create more robust programs of all ages. Yes, we've done that, but we're going to do it even more. Like I said, I told my staff to put on roller skates. Now they're going to be putting on their jetpack. Priority 5, strengthen community connections, dynamic community safety. We're going to provide connections for the public with community health and wellness services. We have started we planted the seed when we did a community health study in combination with Virginia Tech. And many community partners were brought in for the results of that study, and we have a whole bunch of people, community leaders that want to partner with us for enhanced community health study. And telehealth booths that you saw that. We're working to promote and highlight community resources. So we want to have the opportunity at the library for people to see what's going on in the community. We have a community board. We recently expanded that so people can post things that are happening in the community, but we also want to provide a resource book, and we're working on that. Provide open and welcoming spaces that can encourage collaboration and connection. Okay, there's 3 asterisks there. Our numbers did go up for the use of our community room and all of our meeting rooms, but it would have doubled, if not tripled, if we had more space to provide. So we have this giant room upstairs that's half storage room right now and half Friends of the Library shop. I have requested rollover funds to convert this room into a community room and a section of it for the man room. And we would move the Friends downstairs in the current man room. That will provide another community room, and hopefully, if I get it designed right, air walls so that we can divide it into smaller rooms for smaller groups. If we do that, we can then charge for meeting rooms. We don't currently charge for nonprofits. If we allow for-profits or birthday parties or, retirement parties, whatever, we want to rent it out to, we can provide revenue for the county. And that looks good to me. I would love to do that. So just wanted to put that in your ear when you're looking at rollover funds. That's what I've asked for this year. And you see all the wonderful things I did with rollover last year with the AI technology and that sort of thing. Strengthening connections with community organizations and institutions. So that's it in a nutshell. Feel free to ask me any questions about any of these future plans, and feel free to look at the full booklet that will tell you every single thing we're thinking of. And rest assured, this 5-year plan is not going to sit on a shelf and build dust. When I have my management meetings, it sits on the table. And I ask my staff to look at it and see what they've done so far or what they're planning to do to accomplish these things. And I also just want to add one last note. Our entire management staff created this 5-year plan. They divided into groups, subgroups, and formulated this 5-year plan. It wasn't me sitting in a mad laboratory. It was the entire staff working together, and they were all very proud of this. And that brings buy-in, and I know good things are gonna happen from it. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
I'll start it off, Rebecca. Thank you very much. So many of the departments are really challenged to get the word out about their events. And so I'm assuming you're kind of in that same boat. And I would offer up that you could use us to help promote and do outreach for various things that you have that are important. Like you mentioned, the summer kickoff program. And a really slick way to do it, to make it easy on us, would be to send a little paragraph, 3 or 4 lines that we could put in a Facebook post, and then a link to your site where you really go into the detail, and you could send it to all of us, and we could just simply copy and paste it into Facebook. And so, for example, I'm communicating with over 600 people, and I'm just one of 7. So between all of us, I think we could really help you take it up another level even.
Oh, yes, and also I see that the county Facebook page sometimes shares our posts, and you guys can always feel free to do that, to share our posts on your Facebook, and that will boost as well.
Anyone else?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chris?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I'll quickly go through some upcoming events, and there are several. So members of the board, just be patient with us. Likely our staff will be reaching back out to you all to confirm some things. I know we've got a lot of different things. It seems like fall is the busy time for annual meetings and events and so forth, and I've got several I want to share with the board really quickly. But I know many of you, our staff have reached out regarding Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge and their strategic planning work that they're doing this week. I think tomorrow there are a few interviews set up. Some of you may have responded there. Those are at different times tomorrow at the VBR offices, which is in the old train station there in Roanoke by the Hotel Roanoke. So if you have questions on the location, it's at 101 Shenandoah Avenue Northeast, and I can get you some further directions right there beside the Hotel Roanoke. Then upcoming on October the 10th is the VBR annual meeting, and this year they're looking at hosting this at the Salem Civic Center. They try to move, as I mentioned last month, move these annual meetings around the region. This year it's actually in Salem, and they're showcasing their new pickleball courts and so forth at the renovated Moyer Sports Complex. But that is October the 10th at 5 p.m., and our staff can reach out. If any board members want to attend, I know some have in the past, and I know our staff will be attending. Several other things in terms of, by way of events, the 100 years of the United Way of the Roanoke Valley. They're celebrating their 100th year anniversary. They're doing a centennial gala on October the 12th there at the Hotel Roanoke. Again, if there's any interest from the board. Coming up on Tuesday, October 8th, Habitat for Humanity, they're doing another groundbreaking ceremony. I know some of you were involved, and we were, I think Supervisor Nick Mitchell and Mike Carter, I think, and maybe perhaps others attended a actual ribbon cutting for a house that Habitat dedicated this past winter. But they're starting another project actually on Tuesday, October the 8th on Circleview Street here in town. We'll get this word out to you all later in October. We're doing an employee fall appreciation breakfast. That's on October the 23rd for all county employees. A couple items I would want to point out to the board more specifically. One, and I've mentioned this before, and if you haven't registered, if you have interest, certainly please let us know. It's the 21st annual Politickin' and Pig Pickin'. So we know what's on the menu, some good barbecue. This is the Business Leadership Fund of the Roanoke region. It's affiliated with the Roanoke Regional Chamber of Commerce, and of course, all of the elected boards of supervisors in our region have been invited, as well as Will Davis, Bill Stanley, and our elected officials, the Rocky Mount Council, our Board of Supervisors, and others. So if you haven't, or if someone wants to attend, that would be a really good event to attend. It's going to be at the Transportation Museum on October 3rd. So if you have some interest, it would be nice to have someone from our board attend that. And then also, the Roanoke Valley Allegheny Regional Commission that we're members of. I know Ms. Smith, I think you were vice chair of the regional commission. This year, they will be holding their annual dinner. Again, they try to move this around the region. A lot of times it's been in Roanoke, at Vinton, and other places. This year, they're actually holding this on October the 29th at 6 p.m. at the Harvester. And so being, I guess, a host county, if you will, here, it's an opportunity for any of our elected board members to attend. Please let us know if you can attend. It would be nice to have some board members represented that evening. I know that's October 29th, and we'll get that out to you. There's a deadline of October 4th to RSVP. So I'm going to send a lot of this out with our staff to you all. And then several upcoming events. We just finished and spoke with Kevin, had a very successful fishing tournament, another fishing tournament this past week and weekend, Fishers of Men. We finished up this past weekend. There were over 100 anglers represented there at that event. This Thursday, a lot of folks in the community certainly does not want to miss this one. It's been very successful the last couple of years, and that's our Senior Expo at the Essex Center. That's 10 to 2 this Thursday here in Rocky Mount. Upcoming Rocky Mount Fest, a large music festival on the 21st, as well as the Moonshine Memories Historical Society show, and that's at 4087 on Snow Creek Road at that property. And then the week after next, or I'm sorry, actually not this coming weekend, but the next weekend is the Smith Mountain Lake Wine Festival. There are another host of events coming up in October with Parks and Recreation, another large fishing tournament, our King Cat Series, which is a pretty sizable fishing tournament, will be held at the Good Hugh Boat Company on the Blackwater portion of Smith Mountain Lake on October 11th and 12th. And then certainly do not want to forget about the Blue Ridge Folklife Festival, which attracts folks from really all over the United States on October the 26th. Those are just some upcoming events that the community, if anyone's watching online, that may want to participate in. And Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I will remind the board of the upcoming Virginia Association of Counties conference. Currently, we are limited on that availability of, we're limited to 3 rooms, if you will, for that, and 3 registrations. We have reserved some space, some overflow at an off-site property, potentially for the interest of the board members. So we really need to lock that in. We are put on a waiting list, so if additional rooms become available, there will be more opportunity. I know some of you have attended in the past and have already expressed your interest in attending, so we will need to really solidify that. Our preference, certainly we would give preference to the board and the board members. This is a conference that staff doesn't necessarily have to attend. Several of us sit on VACO committees, and we've attended those, and certainly we like to be there and when we can, but we're going to give preference certainly to our board members. So if there is interest and you've already let our staff know, we'll work back through you, Mr. Chairman, as to order of priority with board members. We'll hopefully, all who want to go will be able to make happen. Can't promise that, but we will work back through you, Mr. Vice Chair, for that. And that's coming up on Sunday, November 10th. I think it's through Tuesday, the 12th. And that's all I have. One other item, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and I know we've talked a little bit about this during some of our planning retreat work recently. I had a conversation with Superintendent Dr. Kevin Sears yesterday regarding the possibility of our board and the school board maybe doing a field trip per se of a site visit to check out all the good work that's being done with the renovations of the middle school. I understand while it's an HVAC roof replacement, a lot of that, of course, is the interior, so new tiling, new tiles in the ceiling and so forth, new finishes, new lighting, LED lighting. And, of course, I haven't seen it yet, but Dr. Sears is very impressed with a lot of the work that's going on. Of course, we know that's a long project. They've started in Benjamin Franklin Middle School East. They'll move into Middle School West. And so the idea and the good thought is perhaps if there's a date in late October, maybe in an afternoon, that's available for our board. We would love to get our board and the school board perhaps together in a not so formal setting for a tour of the work that's being done. We know it's a significant capital project that both boards have put a lot of priority and financing into. And so what I will do is have our staff, if it's a pleasure, Mr. Vice Chair, of you and the board, reach out to you as the elected board members to see some available dates and see if we can make that happen. Likely, when there's 2 or 3 or more, I should say, that is a meeting of sorts of the board. Certainly, I hope we would have some that would want to go along, and we could do our due notice with the media and so forth, and specifically set in on a date with the school board. So if, Mr. Vice Chair, if it's a pleasure, I'll work back with our staff to be reaching back out to the board members to find some dates for that tour.
I see a lot of head nodding, so move forward.
Okay. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I do know we have a few items in the closed session this afternoon.
All right. Mr. Gwynn, you have anything?
No report, Mr. Chairman.
All right. This time, Smith, you have a motion to make?
Yes, sir. The Franklin County Board of Supervisors will move into a closed meeting in accordance with Section 2.2-3711A1, Personnel Discussion of Appointments to County Boards and Commissions. A3, Discussion of the Acquisition of Real Property or the Disposition of Real Property. A5, Discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry. A7, Consultation with legal counsel on briefings by staff about litigation or other specific matters requiring legal advice. A29, Discussion of the terms of a public contract of the Code of Virginia as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. We can do a voice vote on this, can't we?
No, it needs,
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead and do a roll call.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison?
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes.
Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
Okay. We'll, B75, okay. We'll reconvene. Smith, you have a motion to make?
Yes, sir. I would make a motion to certify that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session to which the certification applies, and only such business matters as were identified in the motion by which this closed session was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting to which the certification applies.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, you take a roll call, please.
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison?
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes.
And Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
All right. Mr. Gwynn, you have updates?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. In a few moments, you'll have, or actually you do have before you now, a draft of a contract between the county and town of Rocky Mount. This draft grew out of really the discussions that began earlier this year, the end of last year, about the purchase of a fire truck for the town of Rocky Mount. In the course of those discussions, we expanded the discussions to look at a more comprehensive agreement between the town and county that would cover a number of issues that we see currently as well as looking into the future. And among those issues are included an agreement to increase wastewater capacity that is available to the county. Again, support of the purchase of the fire truck by the volunteer fire department in Rocky Mount. It'll include a transfer of some real property, some buildings that frankly should be with the other in this situation. And also a boundary adjustment discussion and proposal at this point. We have to go through the state mandated process with regard to having a public hearing and then getting the court to approve it. But it would be a way in which some of the land that is more appropriate in the town will be in the town, and it will provide better opportunities for those folks with regard to transportation, with regard to some utilities and the like. And so with that, I would ask that the board consider both the primary, what we call the primary agreement with Rocky Mount, as well as authorizing staff to begin the process of having a public hearing with regard to the boundary adjustment agreement.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Gwynn before we move further? Okay, seeing none, board, what's your pleasure on this?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a motion to the board.
Go ahead.
I move that the board authorize the county administrator and county attorney to execute with the town of Rocky Mount.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take a final vote? Okay, Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call, please?
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison?
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes.
Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
Now, as a follow-up to that, Mr. Chairman, would you like a motion for the public hearing?
Would.
I move that we authorize staff to set up as soon as possible a public hearing regarding the proposed boundary adjustment as required by the statute.
Okay, do we have a second?
I will.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So go ahead with a public hearing. Any further discussion before we take a final vote? Okay, Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call, please?
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison?
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes.
And Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
All right. Thank you for taking care of that item of business. Moving right along, our public hearings. Ms. Cooper? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, or good evening.
Yeah.
Sorry about not having this up, sorry about that. Okay. Well, we're here for a special use permit this evening, and I hope all of you are doing well. It's nice to be back. I've been out of work for a little bit, but it's nice to see everybody and be back. Our special use permit, the applicant is requesting a special use permit for a self-service storage facility. It's located on Route 122, which is Booker T. Washington Highway. It's zoned B2 General Business District. It's also located in the Gills Creek Election District. It also happens to be in the Westlake Hellsford designated growth area. The property consists of approximately 2.02 acres, and the self-storage facility basically is located next to Aztecs Rentals, if you're familiar with 122 in that section. The unaddressed property is currently undeveloped. It fronts, as I said, along Booker T. Washington Highway, and it is surrounded by B2 general business, as you'll see when we get to the zoning map. It also has A1 agricultural and planned commercial development across the highway. And as I stated before, it is in the Westlake Hellsford designated growth area. The proposed self-storage facility, when it first came to the Planning Commission, it consists of 4 buildings with a total of 196 units. Like I said before, it is next to Aztecs Rentals. That's where the office would be. There will not be an office at the self-storage facility. The project would use the existing entrance to Aztecs Rentals, and that's at 14070 Booker T. Washington Highway. There will be no need for any water and or sewer for this property at this time. Prior to the Planning Commission public hearing, staff received 4 phone calls, 3 emails regarding the application. 2 of the emails were opposed to this type of development in this location. They felt it was not a fit with the surrounding businesses. The type of use they thought shouldn't be on a main corridor of this area. 1 email was asking for the height of the buildings and if there would be a turn lane on Route 122 or any drainage issues. There were 2 citizens that actually spoke at the public hearing for the Planning Commission. The first one that spoke, the first building was about the length of a football field, and they thought that would be an eyesore because it was right up against the road. They weren't opposed to storage facilities, they were just opposed to the location that was chosen. The other person was concerned with the steepness of the land and rain runoff going on possibly to their property, causing flooding. And the Planning Commission at that point in time decided to table the issue for the special use permit due to the lack of information. And they requested to see a conceptual plan that showed the proposed landscaping that would be required, sidewalk placement, as well as renderings of the storage buildings. So on August 13th, 2024, the Planning Commission, it was submitted that instead of 4 buildings now, the development would only have 3 buildings, 163 units, reduced down from 196 units from the original concept plan. This is the new conceptual plan. So you see Route 122, and this is what they're calling Building B, C, and D. A was the one that one of the citizens had opposition to, that was the size of, he felt it was the length of a football field. The buildings are set back further because of the Westlake Overlay District. You can see the placement of the sidewalk along 122 that's required. These are some of the renderings. You can see landscaping that would be along 122 for this project. This shows when the trees are mature, how it would camouflage some of the building. And these are just different locations. Because of the steepness of the lot, and the applicant can talk more to that, that's why when you see the 163 units where you see like a basement, so they can have an upper units and then lower units. We always like to give you a vicinity map of where it's located in the county. We also like to give you an aerial. So this is Aztec's Rentals. This is the property where the storage buildings would be. And this is your zoning map. So you see this property is surrounded by B2. You do have B2 and agricultural and the PCD across the highway. This is your future land use map. The area on this side of Route 122 is commercial mixed use. You also have commercial mixed use in what is called Lake Watch. And then this area right here is suburban residential, 4 units per acre. You do have some businesses in this area across the street. Just an analysis, what happened at the Planning Commission after they had seen the new information. As you well know, a special use permit is in accordance with Section 25-638, and you're looking to see if it would be detrimental to the adjacent properties. Does it change the character of the zoning district? Would it be in harmony with uses permitted by right in the B2 district and the public health, safety, and general welfare to the community? Excuse me. The Planning Commission stated, even with some of the woodland colors of the storage facility that was on some of the renderings, they still was not sure that if it would fit with the existing businesses. Some of the business owners had shared some concerns with one of the Planning Commission members. They felt it was a difficult property to put self-storage buildings because of the high visibility of Route 122, that maybe there would be another more appropriate place in the Westlake Hellsford designated growth area. Planning Commission did also discuss the heights of the building, which at the time they did not know the landscaping and sidewalks. So your Planning Commission decided that this use would be substantial detriment to the adjacent property. The character of the zoning district would be changed, and that such use would not be in harmony with the purpose and the intent of the county code. And it would change the uses by right in the zoning district and along with the public health, safety, and general welfare. So the Planning Commission recommended denial for the special use permit with a 5-1, 1 in favor, 1 absent vote. You will hear from the applicant this evening, and they have some more information for the Board of Supervisors for your public hearing tonight. And with this information, there are different possibilities that you can do. Obviously, you can take into account the recommendation of the Planning Commission. You could also take this new information that you're getting, and you could table the request until you have more time to look at it. You could also refer the information back to the Planning Commission for them to look at and give another recommendation, or you can make a recommendation of approval with the 9 conditions that staff had on the original application. And I think one of the things that you are going to hear this evening is that the applicant is proposing a 10th condition for the special use permit for you all to consider. And I would be glad to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Go ahead, Dan.
I just have one question. So this is already B2, and so is this use not a by right? Is that why it requires a special use permit? I would have thought that this is a by right use almost.
For when the zoning ordinance was adopted in 1988, the people that, the planners that wrote the ordinance at that time felt that self-storage facilities needed to be a special use permit that needed to be looked at closer than any other of the B2 permitted uses, is my guess of why they did that.
Anyone else? I don't see anyone.
Okay, thank you.
Would the property owner like to speak?
Good evening, members of the board. Ben Crew with Balzer and Associates. I'm a landscape architect, architects and engineers representing Mr. Cody Brown this evening, who is the applicant and contract purchaser for this particular property. First, thank you to Ms. Franklin and staff for the thorough staff report. I'm not going to go down through each part of that, but I would like to hit a few highlights for you all this evening as we consider this and talk about this a little bit. So we're excited to share this project with you. It's certainly a use where there is a need within the locality in this area for it. This request is a little bit unique, where the applicant is the adjacent property owner. And so there's a lot of advantages that are positive to the project that we're utilizing, shared access, sharing some of the operational items related to the project. And so we're going to kind of walk down through those a little bit. I think the staff report did a great job of the discussions to date, some of the details about how we're here this evening. Most importantly, the reduction of the number of buildings and the units based on feedback received, the additional landscaping along 122 for the project, some of the important discussions about building orientation and massing for the particular project. And then, one of the important items that we wanted to share with you all, as contained within your packet this evening, is, we received feedback from the Planning Commission, even though we were unable to participate in the meeting, about the look of the building. And we're all aware that there are 9 conditions proposed by staff right now. The applicant cannot propose conditions as part of the project because there are no proffered conditions as part of an SUP. And so what we've done as part of your packet is we've offered a 10th condition to try to address some of the concerns related to the aesthetics of the proposed buildings. And that's contained in the back of the packet, and I'll just read it real quickly. And this is just something for staff and you all to consider this evening as we kind of work through this. And so we put a little bit of language together as items that we're thinking about as part of a potential condition number 10 as part of the project. And so, these are my words, but applicant shall provide a complementary and architecturally appealing solid masonry finish, brick or split face block on the outside of the proposed buildings in the following locations. Building B along the portion of the building facing Booker T. Washington Highway, and then the ends of all 3 buildings on site, which would be B, C, and D. And the emphasis is placing a durable, hardy material on the outside of the buildings that would be visible from public view. And we felt that would be important to share with you all this evening. A couple of other items, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, is, we've got 9 conditions associated with this SUP. It's important to note that the comprehensive plan supports this use as outlined in the staff report. This is a low-impact commercial development. All storage is set up that way. in an area that already has a mix of commercial uses. The development review team, as part of Franklin County, provided comments as part of the request. Either didn't have any issues or didn't provide any comments as part of the request. Here with me this evening is Cody Brown, who is the applicant and contract purchaser. So Cody's here with us this evening. And then, so that's what I wanted to share with you all as far as a few highlights to get us kicked off here. So I'd be happy to answer any questions for you all at this time.
Anyone have any questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
Good evening.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Have you all given any further consideration as to the stormwater E&S issues with regard to the topography of that property and runoff?
Sure. So a couple of important items. So when we were looking at the development or the configuration of the site, one of the important things that is mandated by the state and enforced by Franklin County is maintaining drainage patterns, right? And so when we were looking at this, water is actually naturally going to one location. And as part of this development, we would provide stormwater management and stormwater quality to meet state standards and meet Franklin County standards as part of the site plan review. That water could not be changed or moved to a different location. It can't drain one way today and then post-development drain to another location. And so that's something that we looked at and considered as part of the layout and the plan that we provide this evening.
Okay, and what about, so I guess you guys are still recommending just buffer by a tree buffer between the buildings and Booker T, Washington?
So there'll be two items related to that. There'll be landscape material, and then there'll also be a fence.
What kind of fence?
I may have to defer to Mr. Brown on that type of fence.
I'm sorry. Let me look at the condition.
Is it-
Opaque material? Opaque material for screen and color. Does that still stand this evening? Okay. Okay.
Yes, thank you for that. Number
Okay.
5.
So I just want to jump back real
sorry.
quickly on the stormwater piece.
Yes, ma'am.
So I understand exactly what you're talking about, but there's really not total mitigation possible because of the topography to like Mr. Eanes' property behind. Would that be correct?
I don't know what you mean by total mitigation.
Well, I mean, of course, you're going to follow the stormwater requirements. Those are mandated and regulated. I still have concerns about what runoff is going to do to those lower end properties for people that are already established there. And so that's one of my concerns. And also looking at the VDOT from the development team feedback. There's 3 things that VDOT has cited that will be required at site plan. These things, I think, could have it could have a lot of impact as to the presentation of the property with regard to left-right turn lanes, sight distance, and of course, monitoring the commercial entrance traffic volume. And so I'm very concerned about that. I have a lot of concern to start with anyway about this use on the corridor in the Westlake Overlay District designated growth area. And I was hoping that we could have moved some conversations that I've had with you guys, moved in some different directions with regard to fencing and so forth. And I understand that you're sticking with your current plan. That I've got that. But I would tell you this evening, I've continued to study this. I've done reference checks along to the village overlay plan as well as the comp plan and so forth. And I'm concerned about the corridor. I'm concerned about the presentation of the project on the corridor at that place. And that area, having visited it, and I live, in the Westlake District, I understand that there are some locations around this site that, don't present as well as what we would like for them to be moving into the future. From my perspective, I think we've got to start somewhere. When we adopt these DGAs and the village plans, they're all aspirational and they're guiding tools in the comp plan. And for that reason, I think anything that's got a special use permit attached to it that allows us to really give critical consideration with conditions gives us some opportunities to make sure we're considering the alignment and compatibility of projects in that area. So I just wanted to let you know, this is my district, and I just wanted to kind of let you know that I've done a lot of homework on this, and I've really tried my best because I don't like to necessarily discourage business. That's not in my wheelhouse. We do have to be concerned about the designated growth areas, and it adds a whole nother layer of consideration, if you will, with alignment for the corridor, presentation, and use. And so those are my concerns this evening.
Sure. Thanks for sharing
you.
that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I just have a question. Of these 9 conditions, is there anything here you find egregious or you do not agree with
No.
that was presented? And also back to Mrs. Smith's, are you going to build a water retention pond
Yes.
for runoff? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, there'll be volume control as part of this. It'll be stormwater management as part of the site development.
Okay. All right, I don't have any further questions.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I open the floor at this time for public comment on this matter. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
I don't have anyone signed up for this matter.
Okay, is there anyone here in the gallery that did not sign up that would like to speak on this issue? Seeing none, I will close the floor for public comment. Board, what's your pleasure?
I'd like to offer a motion.
Okay.
Unless there's comment from my colleagues.
Any comment before we?
Well, before we vote on this, I find a lot of what I read in here very egregious towards a small business. In looking at the aerial of this, there's really nothing around that I think this is going to deter from the area. That's just my opinion.
Anyone else? Okay, Ms. Smith?
Yes. This is a tough one for me. This has been tough. I've studied it a lot. I am going to place a motion on the floor to find that such use will be of substantial detriment to the adjacent properties, that the character of the zoning district will be changed thereby, and that such use will not be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the uses permitted by right in the zoning district and with the public safety, health, and welfare to the community. Therefore, I move to recommend denial of the applicant's request for self-storage facilities at this location.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, without a second, we will take a vote. Madam Clerk, will you do a roll call?
Supervisor Quinn?
No.
Supervisor Smith?
No.
Supervisor Jamison?
No.
Supervisor Mitchell?
No.
Supervisor Carter?
No.
Vice Chair Tatum?
No.
And Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
Okay. The motion was to deny this request, and it just failed on a no vote. Okay. So, is there any other motions anyone would like to make?
I'll offer a motion.
Okay.
I find that the use will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent properties, that the character of the zoning district will not be changed thereby, and that such use will be in harmony with the uses permitted by right in the zoning district and with the public health, safety, and general welfare to the community. Therefore, I move to recommend approval of the applicant's request for a special use permit to allow for self-storage facilities at this location with the following 9 conditions as written.
Okay, we have a motion.
Could I just ask,
Okay.
do you want to include the 10th that they recommended? I'm just asking.
Which one was
because
that?
They offered a 10th.
They
right?
offered a 10th.
That's fine.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this request with the 10 issues. And any further discussion before we take a final vote? Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call, please?
Supervisor Smith?
No.
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison?
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes.
And Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
Okay. Thank you. All right, moving right along.
Mr. Chairman, did we forget to do the appointments?
Yeah, we can do that now, if you would like.
First, I would like to reappoint Mr. George Martin to the IDA for the Snow Creek District.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reappoint George Martin to the IDA. Can we do a roll call, or you want a voice vote? Roll call? Go ahead, will you do a roll call? Oh, voice vote, okay. All in favor of this reappointment, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Mr. Chairman, I would also like to reappoint Morris Taylor Ledbetter to the IDA for your district.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to reappoint Morris Tater Ledbetter to the IDA, representing the Blue Ridge District. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right. Let me read this here. We've reached the time set aside in our meeting for public comment. Public comment gives citizens an opportunity to address the board in person or in writing on matters appropriate to the responsibilities of the board. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes for their comments. Speakers must direct all comments to the board as a whole and not to individual board members or employees of the board or county. Personal attacks or insulting, profane, or vulgar language will not be tolerated. Likewise, commentary on issues that are not within the purview of the board and that are not of the function of local government and over which we have no control are not acceptable. Public comment is not a question and answer session, and board members will not answer questions during public comment. If a speaker violates these rules, the chair may rule the speaker out of order, and upon a second violation, have the speaker removed from the podium. Madam Clerk, will you call the first speaker?
I have no one signed up.
Okay. Do we have anyone in the gallery here tonight that would like to speak to the board? Quiet crowd.
Come on, Randy.
Seeing none, I will close the public comments period, and we'll go to other matters for supervisor.
First time.
Starting with Mr. Mitchell. I'll start with you.
I think I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
You good? Mr. Carter?
Just a couple things. First of all, I'd like to thank staff for all their hard work on this proposal with the town of Rocky Mount. I think it's a great deal, and I think it's going to benefit the county and the town. Moving forward, Mountain Valley Pipeline is in operation, and I know when this came online, we were going to receive some money from them ad valorem taxes. I'd like a report on that, when we're going to get it and what we're going to get. They've also started some negotiations with the town, and I know I think it was the CEO or the vice president of Roanoke Gas came here on 3 occasions talking about providing gas to the schools in my district. I want to know when that's going to happen. That'll be a huge savings in fuel costs moving forward, and I had a little meeting with a couple of the school board members concerning that, and I don't know if this board recalls, but the new boilers or whatever they have at the high school, there's just a minor fitting to switch that over to burn natural gas, so we need to get on that right away. That's a big savings in fuel costs, and that's all I have.
All right. Ms. Smith?
I have nothing.
Okay. Mr. Quinn?
I just wanted to congratulate Lisa Cooper on surviving, thriving, and her determination to come back to work.
I'll second that.
All right. And Marshall, you still with us?
Yes, I have nothing, Tim.
You
Thank
have nothing as well. This is the quietest I think I've ever seen a meeting. I have nothing except I would like to welcome the mayor and some council members with us. They're here, and I don't know, Chris, I don't know if they want to make a comment to the board, or if board members, anyone would like to make any comments to them, but Mr. Mayor, if you want to come up, I'm sure you are aware of our decisions earlier, and we look forward, and I just want to say that I applaud, and I told our staff earlier that I applaud them working with the council, with you and the town manager, and I applaud the council and working with our staff. I think it's a step in the right direction for both of our bodies to work together for the betterment and for the service of our citizens in Franklin County. And when I say Franklin County, I mean Franklin County, Rocky Mount, Boone's Mill. As long as it's within the county boundaries, we're all Franklin County citizens.
And thank you, guys. We did vote tonight as well at the same time as you guys did. So we're really excited. We appreciate all you taking the time to look into this and do the work. I know Jim's going to be happy he doesn't have to hear from me anymore. But no, I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate the unanimous support. We're very thankful, so I just want to tell you guys thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Board members, any of you like to have any comments that you would like to say? Since we have getting out so early, I don't let y'all out too early. It'll spoil you. Jim said, "Oh, it'll be okay."
It'll be all right.
Well, if there are no other issues, no other further comments, I will adjourn the meeting. Reminder, there will be no meeting this Thursday, so our next meeting will be October 15th, 2024, our regular Board of Supervisors meeting.